Liz from Lizzie's Sweet Treats, and I'm here to make some chocolate chip cookies with you today. We're all stuck at home right now, and this is a really fun activity to do with your kids or by yourself, and you get some great cookies at the end of it. So the first thing that I do when I'm going to bake is I make sure that everything is clean and sanitary. So hair should be up and back, and your hands should be washed for at least 20 seconds. Good rule of thumb is while you're washing your hands, you sing happy birthday, and that usually is about 20 seconds long, and that should cover it. You should have your recipe for the ultimate chocolate chip cookies. If you don't have it, just send me a message and I'm happy to send you a copy. Our first step is to heat the oven. We're going to set our oven to 370 degrees. And while that is heating up, we're going to mix and measure all the ingredients. And then we're going to put foil on the counter for when the cookies come out of the oven to put them on to cool. So I'm just going to put my foil aside right now. And now we're going to start measuring. So our first step is to put the brown sugar, shortening, milk, and vanilla into a bowl. We need 1 1/4 cup of firmly packed brown sugar. So you're going to use your hands. That's one of the reasons why it's so important to clean, because you're actually going to be sticking your hands into the brown sugar. I'm going to take my 1 cup measuring cup, scoop it, and then with the heel of my hand, I'm going to push it down, just like you were making a sandcastle. Get that in nice and tight, and put that in my bowl, just like a sandcastle. So there's my 1 cup, and here is my 1/4 cup. Same thing, I'm packing that in with the heel of my hand, and I'm gonna put that in there and put that aside. Next thing is my shortening. So I like to use the Crisco sticks. I find them to be much more convenient than the Crisco tub. There's nothing wrong with the tub, this is just really easy. Because all I have to do for this one is look on the side for the measurements, and right here it'll say 3/4 of a cup, and then I can just take a knife and cut right there. This I'm not using, I'm putting that aside, and I just have to empty it into my bowl, or unwrap it into my bowl. I'm gonna put my trash over here. If you're using the tub, what you want to do is scoop it out with a rubber scraper and then pack it into your measuring cups. You would use a 1/2 and 1/4 cup. Scoop it out, squish it in, and then you would have to take it out by scraping the sides. My next ingredient is 2 tablespoons of milk. Any kind of milk will work. I use lactate milk because that's what I have in the house. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to really make a difference. So when I measure my milk, I have my tablespoon, and I'm gonna measure that over a separate bowl. I don't wanna measure it over this bowl because if I accidentally spill some, I'm not gonna have the exact amount. And I want it to be exact because I want my cookies to come out the same way every single time I make them. So here's 1. And there's 2. So now I know I have the right amount. I'm going to pour that in. And my next ingredient is 1 tablespoon of vanilla. It doesn't really matter what brand you use. I don't use the pure vanilla, I use imitation vanilla just because it costs less. It doesn't really matter. Vanilla is very expensive. So 1 tablespoon of vanilla. You'll notice on your recipe that where it says tablespoon, I use a capital T. If you're ever reading a recipe and there's a capital T, that means tablespoon. If you see a lowercase t, that means teaspoon. And yes, I did almost just put the cap of milk on the vanilla, if you caught that. Okay. Milk, vanilla, and then we're going to beat that with a hand mixer. We're going to do this on medium speed until it's well blended. We'll speed this part up. It should look like this. Our next step is to add the egg. So same thing with the egg. We don't want to break it on the side and put it in, just in case we get some shell, or if for some reason you have a rotten egg, you don't want to put it in there, then everything is ruined. So I'm going to use this bowl that I use for the milk and the vanilla, and I'm going to crack my egg there to make sure I have no shell and that my egg is okay. Everything looks good. I'm going to pour that in, and now I'm going to beat this again with my hand mixer. That was on medium speed. And it should look like this when you're done mixing the egg in. Okay, step 2, in a separate bowl, that's gonna be my silver bowl, we're gonna combine our dry ingredients. That's gonna be our flour, our salt, and our baking soda. So I'm gonna set this aside, and we're just gonna measure our flour first. We need 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. Now, when I'm measuring my flour, again, I want all my measurements to be exact. So I'm gonna scoop up my 1 cup, and I'm gonna use a straight edge spatula. I'm gonna spread around the flour in the measuring cup, measuring cup. And I'm gonna scrape the top off so that it's flat, and I have exactly 1 cup. If you don't have a straight edge spatula, you can use the flat edge of a butter knife. Works just as good. So here's 1 cup. And I need 3/4 cup, so I'm going to use 1/2 cup and 1/4 cup. And that's 1 3/4 of flour. My next dry ingredient is 1 teaspoon of salt. Here's my teaspoon and my salt. Same thing, I'm going to use my straight edge spatula to scrape it and make it even and flat. So I have exactly 1 teaspoon. Add that in. And the next thing is my baking soda. I need 3/4 cup, so I'm going to use a 1/2 teaspoon and a 1/4 teaspoon to get that measurement. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use my straight edge spatula or the flat side of a butter knife. So here's my 1/2. Here's my 1/4. So what I want to do now, I just want to mix that a little, just so it's evenly distributed throughout. And then we're going to move on to my next step, which is to mix my wet ingredients and dry ingredients together. Where it says on the recipe, mix together with the spoon, then add to shortening mixture. Mix with a hand mixer on low until just blended. I'm going to pour that in. And what I like to do before I mix it, I like to kind of scoop it down a little, just so that the flour doesn't poof up at me when I start mixing, because that can make a mess. I'm going to mix this on low. It's going to be just blended. And I'll show you what that looks like in 1 second. It doesn't take long. Remember, I'm still going to be adding my chocolate chips, so if you still see a little bit of flour, that's okay, because you're still going to do a little more mixing with this. So just get a little more in there. And I'm going to clean off my beaters by lifting them up a little higher and turning up the speed, but it's not inside the dough, it's above the dough, and everything is just kind of flying on the sides. That's just to clean my beaters off. And now I'm going to add 1 cup of chocolate chips. You can also add M&Ms, which I don't have right now, so I'm not doing that. But the M&Ms really make it taste really good. If you have them, I recommend you put those in as well. They're still really good with just chocolate chips. The M&Ms are just make them even extra special. Pour that in, and I'm going to use my rubber scraper to mix that around. Just till they're evenly distributed. You don't have to go crazy. You don't have to mix it quickly. Just fold it in, scoop it up, and fold it around. And that's our dough. Our next step is we're going to drop rounded tablespoonfuls of dough onto our baking sheet. That's why they're called drop cookies. If you didn't know, chocolate chips are drop cookies. So we're going to take a scoop and just use another spoon to push it down. I know cookie dough tastes so good and everybody wants to eat it. I don't recommend it because it has raw egg. There is a chance of salmonella. I know a lot of people use their finger and do this and push it off, but then you lick your finger, so that's why I use 2 spoons. You want them to be about 3 inches apart because the cookies are going to spread while they bake. We're only going to bake 1 sheet at a time. This way the air in the oven can circulate around them evenly, and then they come out really good. There we go. And now we're ready to go in the oven. I'm gonna put it in the middle rack. This way the air can circulate around it evenly. I'm gonna set it up to 8 minutes because I'd rather have my cookies a little more on the chewy side than on the crisp side. My timer is going off for the 8 minutes. I'm gonna take a look at my cookies. They look a little wet. I'm gonna put them back in for 1 more minute. You can see over here it looks a little wet. I don't want them that gooey. So 1 more minute and then we'll take them out. The timer has gone off and the cookies look good. So I'm gonna set them aside on the counter for 2 minutes. After the cookies have cooled for about 2 minutes, on the cookie sheet, you want to transfer them over to your foil to let them cool the rest of the way. Now, you'll notice I'm not just going in and scooping it up, because if I do, it's very easy to break them, and you don't want that. I'm gonna go around the sides, loosen them up a little, and then transfer him over. They look good. The reason we only leave them on the pan for 2 minutes is because if you leave them on for too long, like I did with these, on purpose so I can show you, that they get really flat. The pan is still hot, so they're still spreading. Can you see how flat they are? If you don't finish all the cookies today, they freeze really well. Enjoy.